The lights of the Late Show studio beamed down like a spotlight in a courtroom. Applause thundered as the camera panned across the crowd, landing on the set. The host, dressed in a crisp suit and armed with a mischievous grin, extended his arms with mock grandeur. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "our guest tonight needs no introduction, but I'll give him one anyway, because that's what we do here. Royal blood, California sun, and a Netflix deal. Please welcome Prince Harry." The audience erupted again, but beneath the claps was something sharper, an edge, a tension, the kind that builds before a storm. Harry walked in, smiling tightly, waving at the crowd with the practiced precision of someone who's done this all his life. He sat down, crossed one leg over the other. The smile didn't quite reach his eyes. The host leaned in. "So," he said, resting his elbow on the desk, "how's freedom?" A soft laugh from Harry, but it sounded hollow. "Freedom's good. Very much liberating." "Liberating," the host repeated, savoring the word like it had layers. "You know, most people move to America for opportunity. You came for, well, family therapy." A beat. The crowd chuckled, unsure if they should. Harry's jaw tensed. "It's been a journey," he replied carefully. "We've been finding our way on our own terms." "Ah, yes," the host said, folding his hands. "Your own terms. Must be nice telling your truth to the world while the rest of us pay for therapy out of pocket." More laughter. Colder this time. The audience was watching the tension like a tennis match. One wrong move, and it would explode. Harry nodded slowly. "Well, I think everyone deserves a chance to speak their truth, especially when that truth has been misrepresented for years." "Interesting," the host said, voice lowering. "Because some people say that your truth seems to change, depending on who's watching." A flash of something in Harry's eyes. Annoyance. Maybe fury, suppressed. "That's not fair," he said. "I've always spoken from the heart." "And the heart," the host replied, "has a very good publicist these days." The silence hit like a brick. The audience wasn't laughing now. They were leaning forward, hungry. The host changed gears, casually sipping water. "You know, I watched that documentary. The whole thing, twice." "That's flattering." "Well, I wasn't sure if it was a documentary or a PR campaign." Harry's face tightened. "That's reductive. We shared things that were deeply personal." "Oh, absolutely," the host said, eyes gleaming. "Your personal traumas, your personal struggles, your personal mansion." A flicker of anger. Harry shifted in his seat. "It's not about money," he said. "No," the host agreed. "It's about healing, in front of a global audience, with drones and sound design." The first part ended in a silence so thick it could be sliced. Then the host leaned back, smiled broadly and said, "We'll be right back, or maybe we won't. Stay tuned." The cameras rolled back in. Applause returned, softer this time, less spontaneous, like the audience wasn't sure if they were still part of a comedy show or something else entirely. The host smiled, but the warmth didn't reach his eyes. He straightened his cufflinks with theatrical calm and turned slowly to face his guest again. "So," he began, tone almost too casual, "let's talk about privacy." Harry blinked. "Sure. You've said it's the one thing you and your wife value above all else, that you left the UK to escape relentless media intrusion, paparazzi, tabloid headlines, late-night scandals." "That's right." The host tilted his head. "And yet, here you are. Netflix specials, memoirs, interviews, a podcast, Oprah. And now me. It's about telling our side of the story." "Of course," the host nodded, "because nothing says private life like a 6-part miniseries in 4K. The audience laughed again, but there was discomfort in the air now, like watching someone slip on ice in slow motion. Harry's hands curled into fists on his lap. "You don't know what it's like," he said, voice low, "to be hunted since birth, to have every moment picked apart, every word twisted." "Oh, I'm sure I don't," the host replied. "But I also don't recall being handed a palace, a title, and security detail at birth either. Some of us had to walk ourselves to school." A murmur went through the room. That one hit. "I didn't choose this life," Harry said. "No," the host said, "but you sure monetized it." That was the crack. Harry's posture stiffened, his voice sharpened. "We stepped back from royal duties. We stopped taking public money. We're building something new. Honest work." The host raised an eyebrow. "Is that what you call ghostwriting a grievance manual?" gasps from the audience. "I wrote that book myself." "Of course," the host said smoothly. "And in it, you described your brother as physically violent, your father as emotionally distant, your stepmother as manipulative, but sure, privacy." A long pause. Harry didn't respond immediately. The silence roared louder than words. "I needed to be honest," he said finally. "I wasn't trying to destroy anyone." The host leaned forward, voice lower like a whisper that cuts. "Then why does it feel like you're cashing in on your family's pain?" Harry's eyes flashed. "Because for once, I wanted to control the narrative. I wanted to say what happened, not what the press invented." "Then why not do it quietly?" the host asked. "Why the global stage? Why the spectacle?" "Because silence protected the abusers." The words erupted from Harry like a cannon blast. The studio fell into stunned quiet. And there it was, the moment where the mask cracked. The prince was gone. What sat in that chair now was a man, wounded, furious, unfiltered. The host didn't flinch. Or maybe silence just denied you the applause. Another silence, even heavier, even darker. Someone coughed nervously in the audience. The cameras stayed locked. "You're twisting everything," Harry said, voice trembling now. "You have no idea what I've lived through." "No," the host said, "but I do know what you're living off of." The line lingered like a stain. Then the host turned to the camera with that same razor grin. "We'll be back in a minute, unless we're cancelled first." The light seemed dimmer when the cameras resumed. Or maybe it was just the mood, thicker, heavier. The applause was tepid now, obligatory. Even the band played softer, as if unsure whose side they were on. The host adjusted his glasses, no longer smiling. His posture shifted, less entertainer, more interrogator. He glanced sideways at his guest, who sat rigid, as though bracing for another hit. "There's something about truth," the host began slowly, "that gets slippery when money's involved." Harry looked up sharply. "What are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything," the host said. "I'm asking, you say you want honesty, vulnerability, but vulnerability sells now, doesn't it?" Harry's face flushed. "I didn't put a price tag on pain. The world did, and I had to survive in it." "Did you?" the host asked. "Or did you finally find a way to be the center of the story without the burden of the throne?" A murmur rolled through the studio like distant thunder. Harry leaned forward. "You think I wanted any of this?" "I think," the host said, voice suddenly ice, "you wanted the crown without the crown, the sympathy without the scrutiny. You walked away from the system, but kept the spotlight." Harry didn't respond. His hands trembled slightly on his lap. He looked past the host for a moment, to a space beyond the stage, beyond the cameras, as if searching for something real in a room full of fiction. "You talk about mental health," the host continued. "You've said it's at the core of everything. But have you ever considered that maybe airing trauma doesn't always heal it, especially when it drags everyone else into the wound?" A pause. Harry's voice, when it came, was low and brittle. "I didn't drag anyone. They were already there. I just stopped pretending." The host nodded slowly. "And yet you've become what you claim to escape. A spectacle, a headline, a performance." Harry's eyes snapped to him. "You think this is a performance?" The host didn't blink. "I think everything you do is calculated, down to the pauses, the tears, the heroism wrapped in victimhood." There it was, the trigger. Harry stood up, slowly, like a soldier on unfamiliar ground. "You think you're clever," he said. "You sit behind that desk and poke at people. You twist their pain into punchlines." The host remained seated. "And you turn yours into profit." The room was airless. Time slowed. The crowd barely breathed. "I came here to have a conversation," Harry said, "not to be ambushed." "No," the host replied. "You came here to control the narrative, but not everyone plays along." Harry stared at him, his expression unreadable. Fury, shame, confusion, all colliding beneath the surface. "You're no better than the tabloids," he said, voice cracking. The host tilted his head. "Maybe, but I didn't trade royalty for relevance." The silence after that was absolute. Then, without warning, Harry pulled off his microphone, the wire trailing like a severed vein. He dropped it on the chair and turned away from the camera. No goodbye, no final word. He walked off stage. The audience sat frozen, and then the host, after a long beat, looked straight into the camera and spoke. "Well," he said, voice steady, "I guess the truth really does make people uncomfortable." The stage was still. The door backstage had barely clicked shut behind him, but Prince Harry's absence filled the space more powerfully than his presence ever had. The chair sat empty, the microphone tangled beside it like a broken promise. No music, no applause, no laughter, just a room holding its breath. The host sat motionless behind the desk, staring at the spot where his guest had just been. No smugness now, no punchline ready. The air felt radioactive. He slowly turned back to the audience, but didn't speak. Not yet. In the wings, producers whispered urgently into earpieces. A floor manager signaled frantically to cut to commercial, but the host raised one hand. Just a subtle gesture. "Stay. Don't break this moment. Let it breathe." Then finally, his voice emerged. Measured. Low. There's something tragic about watching a man run from a prison, only to carry the keys with him. The words hung heavy. "I don't hate him," he continued. "I don't mock him, but I do question him. Because when your wounds become your brand, how do you ever really heal?" The audience sat in rapt silence. No coughs, no fidgeting, just eyes locked forward, as if watching the final act of a morality play disguised as late-night television. "I asked questions tonight," he said more softly now. Questions he wasn't ready for. "But this show, it's not a safe space for illusions. It's where truth gets uncomfortable." He leaned forward slightly. "We live in an era where pain is currency, and the more polished your trauma, the more followers you gain. But not all truth is meant to be sold. Some of it is meant to be wrestled with in private, in silence." A long pause. "And yet he came here, knowing what we do, wanting something. He didn't say what. He didn't need to." Then his voice darkened slightly. "It's easy to villainize a family. Easier still to package it into content. But when you walk away from duty, from country, from blood, and still demand the crown of sympathy, you can't be surprised when someone finally says no." He glanced at the chair once more. That seat wasn't for a prince, it was for a man. But tonight, as I don't think he wanted to be seen as one. A single clap echoed in the studio, then another, hesitant. The room didn't erupt, it trembled. The host took a breath and exhaled slowly. "We'll be right back," he said, but softer this time. "Or maybe we already left something behind." The screen faded to black. The commercial break never aired. Instead, the screen returned to a dimmed stage. The chair remained vacant, the air thick with the weight of what had just happened. Cameras drifted across the studio in slow, deliberate movements, as if they too were stunned. The host still sat at his desk, but his posture had changed. No longer sharp, no longer composed. His shoulders slumped slightly. His fingers tapped the desk softly, rhythmically. A man not gloating but absorbing. Behind the curtain, voices buzzed in frantic whispers. Producers negotiated statements. PR teams were already drafting releases. The clip would go viral within minutes. Headlines were being born in real time. But inside the studio, time moved differently. The host broke the silence with a single word. "Why?" He didn't clarify what he meant. He just let the question echo. Then slowly he continued. "Why do we let ourselves believe that fame is absolution, that attention is justice, that confession on camera equals redemption?" He stood up. It was rare for him to leave the desk during a segment, but tonight the usual rules had evaporated. He stepped toward the empty guest chair and stood beside it, looking down. "This chair," he said, "was supposed to be a place of dialogue, not defense, but somewhere between the lights and the applause. There it became a courtroom, and maybe that's on me." He looked up at the crowd. "I didn't invite a prince tonight. I invited a man, but I wonder now if he knows the difference." A ripple of unease passed through the audience. Not anger, not sympathy. Something stranger, like watching someone unravel from the inside out. The host turned slowly to face the camera again. He said he left the palace to find freedom, but maybe freedom isn't found on stages. Maybe it's found in the quiet places, the ones where no one is watching, no one is clapping. He paused. "And maybe, just maybe, it's found when you stop trying to prove you're the victim and start asking, who did I become in the process of surviving?" The lights dimmed further. The screen behind him faded into black. No graphics, no music, no applause sign flashing, just silence. Then a phone buzzed backstage. A producer held it up, eyes wide. The clip was already trending worldwide. Millions of views in minutes. Comments pouring in, some furious, others exulting, memes, reactions, hashtags exploding. Should Colbert clash? Harry walks out. Truth or theatre? Back in the studio, the host sat once more. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. I don't know if he'll ever come back, but I do know he left something behind tonight. Not just a microphone, not just a silence, but a question. He leaned in. Who are we when no one believes us? And who do we become when they finally do? The screen slowly faded. No credits. No outro. Just a final image. The empty guest chair, center stage under a single spotlight. And then, darkness. As the echoes of the final words fade into the void, the stage remains quiet. No triumphant music, no closing laughter. Only the memory of a storm that passed through under the heat of studio lights. Tonight was never just an interview, it was a collision. A prince who walked away from power only to find himself trapped by attention. A host who asked the questions others were too polite or too afraid to voice. And a world watching, not for answers but for the spectacle of unraveling. But what remains? An empty chair, a microphone left behind like a symbol, a crown of silence where once there was noise. And the question, burning hotter now than ever, can someone escape a system when they carry its mirror inside themselves? This wasn't about royalty, or scandal, or who shouted louder. This was about the war between identity and image, between the self we show and the one we hide, between my truth and the truth. And tonight, we witnessed the crack where those worlds collide. For some, he is a survivor. For others, a manipulator. A man seeking healing or a brand built on bruises. But whatever he is, he's not finished. And neither are we. Because moments like this don't end when the cameras cut. They echo. In headlines. In group chats. In every uncomfortable silence after someone says too much. So ask yourself, what did you see? Was it cruelty, courage, hypocrisy, or was it just humanity exposed, flawed, fragile, and desperate to be heard? Whatever your answer, one thing is certain. Truth does not flinch. And tonight it sat across from the crown and didn't bow. Stay curious, stay uncomfortable. And remember, sometimes the loudest revelations are made when someone walks away.